Spotlight 2020. I am Gail Nicholson, your host to be, and I am very, very happy today to have this amazing guest with me. But before we get to that, first I want to say a couple of words about Memorial Day. So, for all of you military and veterans that are watching today, um, I hope that I never have to say thank you and happy Memorial Day about you. Memorial Day, of course, is for the ones who have signed that check and the government cashed it and lost their lives serving our country. And we honor those people today. Many of us from our backyards with a beer in our hand and a burger on the grill. But that is in no way to lessen the amount of respect and the amount of honor that these wholehearted Americans have had and have given all for us. So thank you to them, and let's just get into it. So my guest today is a wonderful, wonderful lady from down under. She is in New Zealand, I do believe. Yes, New Zealand. And so right now, today for her is actually Tuesday. So did I really do a show on Memorial Day? I don't know. Anyways, let me introduce to you this amazing woman who has taken it upon herself to make sure that no child goes illiterate in life. So, Christine J Melligan. She is an early childhood educator down there in New Zealand with the program called Kids Learning to Read. And I am so thrilled to have you today, Christine. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Good. I'm great, Gail. Hi. Good morning from me on Tuesday.
Yeah, we got to give you lots of credit. It's like 6 a.m. there where you are on Tuesday, huh?
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
so much for rising and shining bright and early um, to be with us. How are things going down there? We were just talking before the show started that it's autumn down there and just getting warm or cool enough to start lighting the fires in the fireplace. How's that going?
Oh, it's going great. Just like the last month of autumn before our winter really kicks in, and we're starting to light fires as it is. So, yeah, it's getting cold down here.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, try and stay warm for the next half an hour at least. Um,
Yeah.
let me begin by just asking you. Here, let me preface this first. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher. And then I went to class in Detroit and saw how horrible the kids were to their teachers, and I went, "Oh, I don't think I ever want to do that." Right? But you um are a master at teaching little kids how to read. Why? What drew you to doing that? What inspired you about it? And what keeps you going?
Well, what inspired me to teach children to read was I trained for a teacher for 3 years. And then when I had my very, very first class, which was in 2007, I thought that I had been trained well enough, and I thought I knew what I was doing when I was teaching my kids to read. So I decided that I would just decorate my class, get everything all the kids needed, and start my lessons. Unbeknown to me, that my 9-year-old children couldn't read anything that I gave them. And throughout the whole month that I first started teaching them, I realized I didn't have enough skills to actually teach them how to read properly, because one of the reasons why they couldn't read is because they are bilingual. So in our country, we can go to school and learn our native language.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of these kids went to those kind of schools before they came to like an English speaking school.
And
But I
just
did
for clarification's sake, what is your native language?
So our native language is Te Reo Māori. So Māori are the Indigenous people of New Zealand, so we have our own native language. And
Gotcha.
so a lot of them went to a school where they just spoke to their native language, and they came to an English-speaking school. But I didn't know how to teach them to read English at all, and I didn't know how to teach them to read or write in English. And unbeknown to me, the skills that I had learned while training as a teacher weren't efficient enough to actually teach them. So I went back to uni and did my master's degree in teaching kids how to read. So that was the first reason why. And while I was studying, I realised that our schools are not equipped, like in personnel and resources and expertise, to teach our children how to read. Now, in New Zealand, America, Australia, and the UK, we all have the same kind of dilemma in terms of literacy. We have a huge amount of our children who cannot read and write. And I'm talking like 13 to 15-year-olds who cannot read and write. So in America, for instance, there are 200 million children in America who can't read and write in English. And when they do leave college or high school, they leave at a reading level of a 9-year-old. And these are 16, 17-year-old children who leave college or high school and are not reading at a 9-year-old level. Now, the results are the same in those other countries because we all follow the same kind of theories and philosophies of how to teach children to read. Mm-hmm. And the other reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because when you send your child to school, you expect them to be taught to learn to read and write because those are the basics, read and write and maths. Right. Well, because of our education system is not equipped to actually teach our children to read, parents now will have to take control of actually teaching their children to read themselves or getting someone to do it for them because their children won't be able to learn to read in our schools the way that our schools are at the moment.
Now, let me interrupt you for just a second to ask, do you have the same type of thing that we have going on in America since, I want to say like the early 2000s with this No Child Left Behind, where they don't have to actually be able to read to be moved along to the next class, to the next grade? And that's, I mean, my mother's got to be rolling over in her grave when that started happening. But do you have that there as well, where they just keep moving the kids along?
Yeah. So I first started off at a primary school, and at primary school, it's a lot different than teaching in high school. So I moved on to primary school to high school, and I didn't realize the actual huge dilemma that our country has until I started teaching in high school. Now, I started teaching at a year 9, which is about a grade 11 to America, in equivalence to America. These kids are like 12 to 14-year-olds, and they couldn't read and write in English. Now, at high school level, for me, that's I find that quite diabolical, that our education system allows our children to go through our education in that manner, that they start from primary school and they continue to high school and they still can't read or write. Now, the big issue for me is this. If our kids can't read and write right now, they don't have access to information that they really, really need to actually become, really efficient, really efficient, responsible citizens in our country and in our world. Now, with the event of the internet, if they can't access information at school, they're not going to be able to access information on the internet to allow them to grow, to prosper, and to become like wealthy, healthy, and knowledgeable about their own lives if they can't access the right kind of information because they can't read and write.
Right.
And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because information is power. Knowledge is power. And if our kids can get access to the right knowledge, then they will be able to do whatever they want to do. As if they can't read and write it, well, then they are actually hugely disadvantaged.
Yeah, I am so tempted, quite honestly, I'm so tempted to go on a tirade about how unconscionable it is for governments to do this to their citizens.
Yes.
It really is. But regardless, let's step aside from the blame part and step into the responsibility of it. And I want to acknowledge you for being one of those people that says, you know what? No, this child doesn't fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
This child does not get, pushed ahead. They get cared about because the future is literally in their hands. I mean, here in the States, the big conversation is about not teaching them how to write cursive anymore. So if you've got
Yeah.
a generation that doesn't know how to write cursive, it's hard enough to read the Constitution as it is, let alone if you don't know how to write or read cursive. So, do
Yes.
you think that there is some sort of societal engineering into, just put the nut on the bolt and shut up, kind of, this is what we want our workforce to be?
Yep. Yes, unfortunately, that's it. And that's the political, teaching kids to read in education is very, very political. Because just imagine if all our kids, just imagine if all those 200 million kids in America could read and write, what the difference would be.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of them growing up, in terms of them learning, and in terms of them starting to take control of their own lives.
Yeah, yeah.
The difference would be huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
and we can see even just in recent history with women specifically, right? How in many,
Yeah.
many cases when girls were not even sent to school 100, 150 years ago. And then it transformed into, the high society would send their daughters to finishing school, or, the only reason to go to college is to snag a husband, right? And
Yeah.
that's just one version of this whole dynamic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're so much more powerful as a society when we know, how to
Yeah.
read, write, how to get our point across, how to be understood in whatever
Yes.
format. Now,
Yes.
let me ask you a little bit about what makes you different, what makes you unique in how you teach them, and how they're learning with you with this type of program from other tutors or programs that are teaching children to read. How is your program different?
I'm different
When you
because I have a personal touch. So, first of all, I do a lot of one on one teaching. I make sure that I interact with the kids. Now, there are a lot of reading programs out there, a lot of online reading programs out there where the kids just interact with a platform and with an online reading program. And their marks, their results, and that all done by computer. Well, I do that myself, mainly because when you've had a child that struggled to learn to read for a number of years, they've been through all that. They've been through all the computer online programs. They've been through all the reading programs that they get at school, and by that stage, they've pretty much had enough, because a lot of their interaction is with computers, is with online programs, because they do those at school as well. But there's really not much personal interaction with them, and they need that so they can understand what they actually need to learn. And a lot of my teaching is all based on the understanding of what the English language really entails and consists of. And you can't do that if you're not interacting and talking to them. And also, because of a lot of my instruction is about them talking to me and understanding the phonological aspects of the English language, because it's really quite difficult. They need to be able to hear the correct pronunciations and the correct way to actually say the different sounds that are in the English language. And they can't do that if it's an online program.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, have you noticed? And I don't know one way or the other, but have you noticed with the online program with the totally computerized types of things,
Yeah.
when the kid is misunderstanding them or has a learning challenge such as dyslexia or something like that, do any of the programs have anything in them where they go, okay, these are the questions the kid got wrong. This is an indication of this type of learning challenge. that could feed back to whatever human tutors in charge of the situation in a way like you can, where you go, okay, I recognize this pattern in your challenge to understand what I'm telling you. This is an indication that we got to work in this area. I don't think that the computers can pick up on that like a human being can, unless they've developed some way I don't know.
Yeah. They can, but only to a certain extent. But some of the challenges that our kids face is that they can't hear some of the sounds because they're at different pitches and they're at different speeds. And so, and because of some of them, a lot of children have a lot of hearing disabilities or hearing difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
So if the computer can't pick that up, then the child won't be able to progress. And with someone human and someone personal, they can do that just instantly, just by talking to the child, and then adjust the program to actually suit them, because we cater specifically for that child, and whatever is to cater for their needs, to make sure that they're on the right track and to make sure they're going to progress to where we want them to be, then we need to pick up on those anomalies with our kids really, really quickly. And because it's really hard to keep a kid engaged who doesn't like to learn to read.
Mm-hmm.
And once I've got them engaged and motivated and loving what they're doing, then we know that we're on the right track. And it's really hard to get that engagement and motivation from a computerized point of view compared to a human point of view.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, do you have clients all over the world at this point, don't you?
Yes, I do. So we have 3 different kinds of programs. So we have, I haven't worked in this area a lot, but in terms of a preventative kind of method of getting our kids to learn to read, I've opened up free resources and tutoring to our 3 and 5-year-olds, because if we can get them to learn to read easily, that's magic. Mm-hmm. So I help parents teach their children to read and write from 3 to 5-year-olds. So that's one classes that we do. We also do classes from 6 years upwards, and that's online, and that's a self-directed kind of class, where they also have one-on-one sessions with me once a week. Mm-hmm. And then I have my private classes where it's more interactive and more intensive, and we have like one-on-one lessons 3 to 4 times a week, depending on their need. Yeah, so we do it that way, and those are more intensive and integrated with our students. Mm-hmm. Now, during coronavirus, I've developed our curriculum to include all the curriculum areas. So instead of just learning to read, they do that within maths, science, and digital technology, mm-hmm. so that it covers a lot of areas, and so that it covers different kinds of aspects that the kids would have learned at school if they had been at school. So we started doing that now, and it's been a huge success. We've had lots of kids come and jump on board and do the self-directed learning and learn science, and especially science from a Māori perspective as well, which is really completely different. So a lot of our kids do that as well. I also have foreign students who can't speak English at all, so English is their second language. So I have a lot of foreign students learning to read and write in English as well.
Fabulous. What is, in most of the cases, what is their first language?
With Māori, there is, they're from Algeria, so okay. I'm not sure what their language is. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Now, let me get to the crux of it here. What do you really offer, right, that actually gets those results for the kids?
What do I offer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I offer 3 things. So, I've been doing this for 17 years, and throughout my experience, I've developed a formula that I know works for our kids. So it's called DEFCOM. So what I do is I teach decoding, which is a necessary component for our kids to learn to read. Without that, they will always have difficulty learning to read. So decoding is like the brick and mortar of teaching kids to read. So you know how you have brick and mortar to build a house, and without that, the house will crumble. Well, the same thing with decoding. They need that to actually start the foundations of learning to read. And decoding is really just understanding the different letter patterns and the sounds that they make, and the sounds they represent. Because a lot of kids don't know that what we say, they can actually write and read, because that's what written language is. Written language is just the alphabetic representation of what we say. So the first part is decoding. The second part is fluency, which means to read with speed and accuracy, which a lot of kids can't do. Hence why a lot of kids don't like reading aloud, because they do it very, very slowly, and it's staggered. So fluency is about teaching the kids to read smoothly, with speed and accurately. And the last part, which is probably the hardest part for kids to learn, is understanding what they read. Because what happens is that we have a lot of kids who can decode, who can actually read words, but they have no idea about what they're reading. So that's the last component of our reading program. And the three of them fit together really, really well. So there's decoding, fluency, and comprehension. So that's the difference that we teach with compared to other reading programs, because they have one or the other, but they don't have all the three together.
I gotcha.
So
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. As you're discussing that, I'm just thinking, and forgive me for the politicization of this, but I can just imagine that society here in America would be a little bit better off if you'd had access to get a hold of Donald Trump when he was a little kid and teach him how to read with comprehension and fluency and comfort. Because it does seem like he's got some challenges that were never addressed, and it impacts his ability to come across publicly and with the decorum that we would like our president to have.
Yeah.
Yes. It really can impact people's success and likability in life.
Yes, it can.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this deal that you have to share with our audience about your tutoring classes coming up. I know that you've got, like you said, private classes, if necessary. And that you have a special price going for your classes, whether private or not. Please, again, tell us how my audience can get their hands on that access to the free curriculum for 3 to 5 year olds, because that's very exciting for me. My mom taught me, I think probably my siblings as well, to read long before we went to school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we were allowed to read whatever it was that we were interested in. Now, that's not saying we were reading slasher movies, books at the age of 5, but my brother, for example, very much liked cars, and he hated to read. But if you put a copy of Popular Mechanics in front of him, man, he'd go, he'd be gone for an hour into that magazine. And myself, I liked Peanut comic strips. So I had these little books that were just Charles Schulz comic strips over and over. So it doesn't really matter what you're reading as long as you are reading, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So please tell us about what you have to offer on the COVID-19 deal.
Okay. So for our 3 5-year-olds, so we have everything's free for them. I will support the parents to I'll actually show and demonstrate and teach the parents how to teach their children how to read, and the different systems and the different steps that they actually can take. So what's really exciting about that is it's really quite quick. The children, our babies are really quite quick learners, and they learn to read really, really quickly the way that I teach them. Because there's a lot of fun, and it's just quite kinesthetics, and there's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of talking, which kids love doing. especially our little babies. And the lessons are only about 5-10 minutes max, because there's no way our 3 to 5-year-olds can actually, their attention span is very, very short. So it's just quick, short, fun lessons for our babies. For the 6-year-olds up, our lessons are 30 New Zealand dollars for a week for one child, or $60 for 2 children or more per week. And they get all the resources, they get all our modules. Everything's online, and everything is through video, and they have lessons with me once a week as a group. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excellent. And then we have our private lessons. That's 600 New Zealand dollars for 12 weeks. And that's an intensive program where I actually teach them how to read for the 12 weeks. And by the end of the 12 weeks, they are actually reading and understanding what they're actually reading by the end of 12 weeks.
That's amazing. That's awesome stuff. All right, excellent. Now, how can our audience get a hold of you to get those items?
Right, so we have a Facebook group, Kids Learning to Read. I think I've popped over the link to you. We have a Facebook group, yeah. We have our website, Kids Learning to Read Learning Hub, and we also have a YouTube channel.
Excellent. And all of those links will be in the message when I post this online. So thank you very, very, very much for what you do. I know that you know as well as I do, but even more so, that it makes a huge difference in the life of the child, in the life of the child's family, in the community that they're a part of, in the world as a whole, when all of our citizens have the skills that they need to become what they came here to be. So thank you again for being one of those people that is unwilling to let any child fall through the cracks and has stepped up to make sure that your gifts are transferred to the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Now, do you have any final words for our audience before we send them on their way to barbecue today?
No, just have a happy day, and I look forward to working with you and your children.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye. When you open yourself up to actual energy work, makes that recovery progress so much faster. That recovery is possible. You do not have to live as a victim until your last days. You have unbelievable strength, and I know that because you're still here. Do you want to create something completely unrecognizable with your life? I can show you how.